Alrighty. Hi everyone. Hello. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Twitch stream and podcast. The Currency podcast. This is episode uh, 107, as I'd like to refer to it. This is a little thing I call episode 107. It's a little thing that I made. I don't know. Ever heard of it? Episode 107 of the Currency podcast. Congrats to me. So I'm in the 5th event of 6 in the Corn Ferry Tour in my career mode on this golf video game I'm playing. And I'm going to start playing it right now. I'm in the last, 6 holes of the last round of this tournament. I already made the cut. And I'm number 3 in the standings. But as you might expect, I do set it up for me to make it out of the Corn Ferry Tour to the PGA Tour without failing on the first try. I have deliberately set it up for myself to succeed in this. And so that maybe, but what I need to do is, for the last tournament, is upgrade the settings. This is I think my settings are on normal. I gotta make them harder than they are. I'm the kind of guy who likes to hear the sound of their own voice, obviously.
Hello and welcome back to our coverage.
Oh, that's annoying. That's loud. Don't want to hear the sub-narrations of the broadcasters in this game. I only want to hear my narrations for reasons that I just mentioned. Only my voice will be heard. I mean, but that's why I make this solo podcast. I don't know. I feel a lot of different things about what I want to do in my life, and I don't act on very many of them. I've had a sad weekend. I woke up on Saturday morning, and I didn't feel happy like I obviously normally would because it's Saturday, the weekend begins. I just felt kind of depressed. I just felt depressed when I woke up on Saturday, and it's just because there's too many lingering things I want to do that I don't take action on in my life. I have a job that I've been telling people that I'm going to quit for like 3 years. And I don't know how to quit it. And for some reason I'm unhappy with my position in life, even though I'm very fortunate to have the position I do. I can't really make sense of my unhappiness. And so that's just kind of depressing. But anyway, that's not how you start off a thing, by telling people that you're sad. It's, what people like is dogs and people smiling, happiness and positivity. That's what appears the most on your TV screen. It's because that's what gets the best ratings, they've found out. But those Sandy Hook families, like, they should really take a hike. I feel as though what's going on there is that, like, what's the self-righteousness of these families? They've already been awarded 3 different settlements of over $1 million, and then they get $965 million awarded to them by Alex Jones. They made $73 million from the gun manufacturer. They made over $1 million from. They only made $1 million from the shooter's family, but Alex Jones said mean things to them, so he actually owes them $965 million. Seems a little excessive. I'd say it's one of the biggest attacks on free speech that there's ever been, but mostly the nation loves the centralized narrative. They love the official narrative. There can only be one narrative. That's the land. That's the nation you live in. And the nation just appears more and more disgusting to me by the day. But don't take my word for it. I'm just saying the nation is disgusting, the kind of crap that they put on TV. But I'm one of their bitches because I watch so much football. I see all the crap that they put in the commercials. It's the Muppets over and over and over again. on network TV, on like the Fox, CBS, ABC, NBC channels. It's always the Muppets, and it's always Muppets in commercials on those channels. For some fucking reason, we can't escape from that. That's how that world is defined. The world of cable TV, which is its own world, but it has its limits basically at, if you're a young enough person, at like Generation Z, nobody really cares about the Muppets, but that's how you know that all of those TVs are just running their programming for boomers and generation, anybody like 30 and older. That's the era that TV is defined to, and they're limited to that. That's ultimately the only people they can appeal to, so the best they can do is go back to the 80s over and over again. Like, oh, we're doing, like, how networks like NBC will run TV shows that are just centered around the 80s. Like, for some reason, the best that network TV, cable TV can do anymore is appeal to people by doing 80s based entertainment. It's only 80s based content, but what I'm saying about Alex Jones is that I really would have to start thinking that those parents are like actors or something. How good do you have to be at appearing sad in public places in a courtroom that somebody's willing to give you $1 billion for it? I mean, when it reaches that point, I just have to ask, like, are these a bunch of professionals or something? But if I say that, am I going to owe $300 million just because I support and I'm referencing an alternative narrative? Like, I guess that's the most egregious sin in this country, is supporting an alternative narrative. At this point, it costs you $960 million or something like that, just to not, like, if you go against the official narrative that dogs are nice and people are happy, or whatever it is, like positivity. It's just that the Alex Jones thing is an attack on free speech and individualism. It's just a faux trial. It's a sham trial, kangaroo court set up by the left. You already know that that jury is just 13 Nancy Pelosi's, and the judge. Like, you really think that they got a random judge? I'm sure they just randomly picked the judge and jury. The entire thing is just set up to make a public example out of us, that if anybody tries to be an entrepreneur in the area of giving substantial support to an alternative narrative, if anybody tries to do that, especially somebody, it's kind of like Alex Jones's platform is so alternative that he owes as much money as the reality that he created is different from the mainstream reality. But it's like Alex Jones, if you go on his website, it's this alternate reality that he created as an entrepreneur. It's Alex Jones is just an attack on anybody who would anybody that would get big enough creating an alternate reality, or giving a basis for an alternate narrative. It's only the centralized narrative. It's a very Christian thing, the same way that the official narrative is the Jesus one, for as long as we're remembering historical events, or as long as we're remembering historical events, there's only one timeline. We have a centralized mainstream timeline, and it's just that if you appear too much like an outlier, or you're saying things too much outside of the norm, I guess the nation gets really scared. But it's impossible to do that anymore. That's the worst thing you can do. Kanye West, he's supporting an alternate narrative, and like, we really don't like that. He's saying that George Floyd died of fentanyl instead of what the official narrative is handed to us by the media. And so as a result, George Floyd's family is gonna open up a settlement where he owes them $250 million. You don't get to say that there's something going on outside of the mainstream narrative, the way that we remember it historically, the way that it went down. there's only one way that you get to look at that, and that is the way that the media declared it at the time. And if you support something different after the fact, that'll be $250 million. And that's the disgusting nation that we are now living in. It would appear that it's just getting worse and worse by the day. I was thinking about not voting, really, but now, because of this Alex Jones thing, my hatred for the left has been reinvigorated, and I will go out and vote straight Republican, because the left thinks that they can silence the voice of anybody who supports an alternate narrative, but they just don't want people to be free thinkers, people theorizing about things. They don't like a conspiracy theorist. They want to make an example of it, of probably the most famous conspiracy theorist. So they're like, we're going to set it up that he's going to owe $965 million. And so that'll show anybody who wants to say something outside of what the media, mainstream media, is saying. That'll get everybody to continue to listen to the mainstream media. And the mainstream media has gotten stronger in the since the pandemic ended. The media got better because it's kind of like a death scare for the entire nation. They got afraid of death, and I think everybody's sort of running back to Jesus, honestly, a little bit. And it comes through in the media, and it comes through in football games. And I think it's creeping into just football games that they're going to start. I mean, it's always kind of around the edges, but they're always trying to make it about family and love. And the next step is just to say that it's faith in Jesus. That's what we're all here for. You can't do this game without faith. Like, definitely Disney and ESPN, they're going to start talking about the importance of the Christian faith. It's already creeping into I don't really know. It just would appear that we are reverting back to a Christian state of things, the same way that Christians had more power in like the 80s with the moral majority, then they started to lose it in the 90s, and then by the 2000s we were living in a secular world. It swung back to secular, and all of the music videos were just a lot of nudity, a lot of sex on TV. Things got evil for a while in like 2000, from like 97 to 2007 especially, but now we're swinging back the other way. Everybody's getting self-righteous and morally indignant. Everybody's starting to act like there is a common code of morality that we all have to have. And you have to listen to the courtroom too. But the thing is that I think ultimately Alex Jones having to owe $965 million, it's really just making a joke out of the courtroom. I think the courtroom setting is deteriorating before our very eyes, because who's going to have faith in a courtroom that's just going to flippantly act like $965 million is a feasible sum of money to overcome? I think what takes a hit really is the courtroom and people's faith in it and perception in the strength of a courtroom. Especially when it's like, I guess anybody who says something outside of the mainstream narrative is going to owe $100 million. Like Kanye West just mentioning an alternative narrative, and now he's the most evil man on the face of the planet. And shills like Andrew Schultz, who only appeal to the masses, and basically everything he does is a ploy for popularity. Andrew Schultz is I think there isn't a lot of depth there with Andrew Schultz personally. I'm not a fan of his work, and he seems to get into a big weirdo argument with anybody he has on his show that has a greater level of intelligence than he does. He handles that really poorly because he has to be in control, and he has to look swag at all times, look on top of everything. Like, unfortunately, that guy has a disease where he has to look cool at all times. And I have my own battles with this disease. And you're probably thinking, how is that possible? You don't look cool very often, to me. Maybe that's what you'd think. I'm just saying that I do get afflicted with the idea that I have to look cool at all times. And I was thinking about this podcast that I do, and I was like, I don't think it's cool that I do this, but also I'm departing from the way of life of thinking that things need to be cool too. Like I don't think that this is very cool to do a solo podcast, but also things don't really need to be cool. And I'm kind of a poser, but I enjoy posing as a poser. But I was thinking about how, like, if you were successfully pretending to be a poser, that's something that people love to see. People love the person that is like their persona is a sham. That's probably the thing that people love more than anything, is the person that they can tell is a sham, but yet has not yet been revealed to be a sham. So that people think they have a leg up on the world, or the person at least, when they can see through their persona. Like when somebody has a flimsy persona in their sights that they can totally, they think they have confidence they can totally destroy. That's something that people love to see. Like that's so entertaining, is the person who's the poser. And man, I'd say that as things stand now, I am a poser. I really am. And I don't think I can deal with that anymore. But I don't know how long I'll decide to not deal with that. Like, I work for the government, and I don't believe in the government, and I think that it kind of flies in the face of a lot of my messages to work for the Department of Defense, whatever. And I can't continue that. I'm suicidal, ultimately. That's how I make a podcast like this, and try to give a honest hour. I try to talk about my life honestly for an hour, and then I do that more than 100 times. That's just kind of like an affinity for dying, is how I would describe it. I'm kind of suicidal like that, where ultimately I think I will make the sacrifice to do what it is that I want to, even if it means dying, because I think it's more important to take the hit. But I'm just kind of like suicidal like that, and by that I mean I would wait till the point that like if it got to the point that I wanted to do something drastic as kill myself because my circumstances sucked, I wouldn't do it. I would just die as the thing I was doing so that I could move on to something else. But what I'm saying is that to me it is like dying or already being dead to continue living a life that you know is going to make you unhappy when there are things on the docket for you to do that you're just ignoring. I'm saying that it's important to, at some point, graduate to those things that you've been ignoring. And graduating to those things is like, it's kind of like dying, but I'm just saying I'm like suicidal or something like that. Or I just picture it as that. It seems like I keep dying over and over again. It's kind of like a defense mechanism, an attempt to not be identified by people. Not like I keep changing like a chameleon or something. I think that that's like being suicidal. Because suicidal is more relative than we're just going to only talk about suicide when somebody ended their physical life for sure. There are relative levels of suicide is what I'm saying. There are relative levels of dying. And but make sure that you support it's only the official narrative. But also, there are new articles out that the Sandy Hook families are going to be requesting, they're going to try to get like $2.5 trillion from Alex Jones. I don't really know what what that's about, but that's the article that came out, I think, from Bloomberg, and Bloomberg is left-leaning, so this is like apparently seriously the thing that these families are pursuing. And if you're willing to make that much a mockery out of your kid's legacy, like that you're going to make it this clownish. It's already clownish enough that you're being rewarded 965 million after already being rewarded two separate settlements of over $1 million. They went even further. But it's like they show images of the courtroom and this Alex Jones thing, and these families they have Kleenexes and they're dabbing their noses. It's 10 years after the fact. You would have thought these people had some practice at this point to be able to stop themselves from crying in public. But they're just doing that so they can put on a display of sadness, which is something that these people are very good at. To be awarded three separate settlements for totaling over $1 billion. But that's not enough for them. They're going to be requesting more than $2 trillion, and they think that that doesn't sound ridiculous. I would have to start thinking at that point, if that's a serious request of theirs, that these adults have a pretty distant relationship from their kids, that they're willing to just make a big joke out of this entire thing, because at that point you're asking for something like the fifth biggest, the country with the fifth biggest GDP in the world or something, over somebody saying mean things. It's just an attack on free speech. Like, you're not allowed to say ugly things anymore. Apparently, that's the worst thing you can is say ugly things, say things outside of the the mainstream narrative. I think that um it's a lot of stupid people that can't be mean. I think that being mean is reserved for smarter people, and then what you get is a lot of dumb people who um who want to attack people who sound mean to them. Like, mean is a liberty that you get if you're more intelligent, because in order to be mean, you're talking about things that are outside of the mainstream narrative, or outside of mainstream knowledge, what everybody knows. Like somebody like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. I'll just use Jordan Peterson as the example. He comes across as mean to lots of people, but it's the same thing as, he's so much more intelligent than the average person, that there are all these averagely intelligent people and stupid people that are like, hey, you can't say those things, because the things that Jordan Peterson is saying exist in an unknown realm to most people, because he's illuminating a lot of territories that people aren't thinking about, and are beyond what people are able to understand, or beyond what they've ever heard before. And that's foreign to people. They don't understand it. They get scared. They attack the mean guy. And it's just that, like, you have to, mean is a right that you get if you're more intelligent, because you get to illuminate realms of thought that exist outside of the obvious, positive, evident narratives that just involve liking dogs and loving people, and we're all here in this together. Those are all stupid narratives. Um, it's more intelligent to be more specified, and it's like that's what Jordan Peterson does. Just if you watch one of his speeches, he takes so much time to specify within the phrases and things that he's saying. He'll take time out of what he's saying to classify his phrases the right way for the listening audience. Like, he's about as logical as any person on the planet, uh, with the way that he breaks down the territories of words that he's trying to describe for people in a speech that he's giving. But that's just like, having a big vocabulary is having an ability to illuminate words and territories of words more specifically, and at levels deeper than the average person is able to see them. But it just comes across as mean for people that are too stupid to know what he's saying, because it exists in an unknown realm. It's evil. I would say that the evil is the unknown, and good is the known. Would be my argument. That's the way I would describe it. That's that's the stance I'd take on that topic. Is that good is what is known and what's obvious and evident and what you can see. It's good is what happens within the borders of your knowledge or anybody's knowledge or the world's knowledge. Um, Bad, evil is what happens beyond what we know, and that's just what it'll come across as for people that are stupid. That's what Jordan Peterson will sound like, is that he is evil, because he's describing things that exist in an unknown realm. And what I'm talking about is kind of like being fake versus being real is such a complex dynamic, fake versus real, that it's really like what Jordan Peterson is saying is fake. I would say that the unknown realm, the realm that's outside of the borders of an individual's knowledge or like a group's knowledge, what's outside of the borders of knowledge or the safe territory, outside of the borders, just outside of the boundaries and the rules that you're supposed to follow. Like being good is always within the boundaries. It's always following the rules. It's always moral. It's always moral to be good. Morality is happening within borders. It's not happening with outside of them. And so when somebody is presenting something that exists outside of the borders or outside of the rules, that's just automatically evil. But that happens automatically when you encounter somebody who is more complex or more intelligent than you, because they're talking about things that exist outside of the borders of outside of the rules, pretty much. And like Jordan Peterson is fake in this way, fake as opposed to real. And it's just kind of weird how um I see a lot of evil and a lot of hatefulness in the way that Disney is broadcasting football games. I think that they're doing as best they can to completely ruin sports, something you think would be unruinable. Like you can't really ruin a football game, you would have thought. But ESPN is um, ruining ruining a football game. I was watching a game between, and I'll get back to what I was saying about Jordan Peterson in a minute. But I'm just making connections between words and ideas where I'm trying to tell you which are all of the ideas that belong in the same category, between defined and undefined. The defined realm is the good realm. That's what is known. What is known is good. That's what's within the rules. You get somebody who is just sounds crazy or whatever. It's not that they're crazy. Like Jordan Peterson is talking about his like his perspective, his point of view is so complex that he's talking about a lot of things that are outside of the personal moralities of a lot of different people. Um, because he's able to discuss things at a greater level of depth than most people are able to see. And it's just that what he does is fake, and it comes across as fake to people stupider than him. That's what you would have to call it, because that's what it is literally. Like it's not just the perception, that's literally what it is. What Jordan Peterson is saying to people that don't know what he's saying, it's fake to them, even though Peterson has a viewpoint that's above, deeper or above, whatever you'd want to say, other people. So it's real to him, but it's fake to anybody who hasn't heard it before. And then it's just kind of pretendish, or it's pretentious what Jordan Peterson does. Like Jordan Peterson is the most pretentious guy on the planet. And but to him, he's not actually pretending. Everything he does is real. It's just the level of real that he exists at is outside of the realm of what most people are capable of understanding. And so it comes across as fake. It exists in a fantasy land. Like if you encounter somebody that what they're saying is undefinable to you, you encounter an undefinable person, which is somebody I'd say is someone above your pay grade, like in terms of intelligence, in terms of artistry, somebody beyond better than you, like they overcome the borders of your knowledge. And I'm saying this for myself too, like I'm thinking about people that are undefinable to me. Um, if you encounter somebody who's saying all these things that you don't know, it's basically what they're saying exists outside of your rules in a fantasy land in the world of the unknown, and it's pretentious and it's fake because it exists in a fake realm, in a realm that you haven't mapped yourself, and or that I haven't mapped myself. And it's just that the evil world is the fake world, but like if you illuminate it, it's just that the greater the level of specificity or intelligence, or the more that you're able to parse things out at a deeper level or at a more microscopic level, is the more that you will be complex and confusing to other people that see you. And like I forgot what I was starting to say. The more that you do that is the more complex you'll be. But yeah, those Alex Jones families. But anyway, I was watching a game between Alabama and Mississippi State last night. And the entire thing was just a commercial for Alabama. That's how it's broadcast by ESPN. It was owned by Disney. That's how Disney is ruining football, which you think that they wouldn't be able to do. This Alabama game was just a 3-hour commercial for Alabama. It's just propaganda for them. Kirk Herbstreit was the broadcaster, and he's been a complete pawn for Disney for ESPN for like at least 10 years, but he's always propagandizing the shit out of Alabama. Kirk Herbstreit is the kind of person that all that he is concerned with is the well-being of himself and his family. He could give a fuck about anybody else. And so he doesn't care about spewing out false narratives or spinning things for the power of ESPN and Alabama, because ESPN makes a lot of money off of Alabama, for Alabama being Alabama's most powerful team in the SEC, and ESPN has broadcast contracts with the SEC. Alabama is basically a product of Disney, is one of their products, and they need it to succeed. And so they have the producers get in the ears of the broadcasters of college football games and tell them to propagandize Alabama. Not so much for like 29-year-old longtime fans of football like me, but for kids that are growing up, or college football prospects, high school football players, kids that don't really understand and are just watching it, and they're not thinking about how it's all a bunch of propaganda. All that they know is that Alabama has always been seen as like the greatest team in college football, because that's the only way that ESPN will ever talk about it. But basically, Kirk Herbstreit is not so much a sports broadcaster a lot of the time anymore. He's just a salesman for Disney's cash cows for some of their most important products, because we all know how much Disney only cares about money, that they're like notorious for making some family pay however much money, I don't know, or like making some family remove a cartoon character on their child's grave that their child liked, because Disney got litigious and was like, that's illegal, because they're so protective of their products. Like all Disney cares about is money. We already know that. But like
But not a bad approach, that one. Up on
Kirk
the
Herbstreit's just a salesman now,
and that'll be a pretty good hole.
There's a long way, but I tell you what,
and
I've seen it happen before. So there's a
35
chance.
minutes. Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of resentment. I'm resentful now at this time in my life. I'm just trying to avoid going down paths that will make me feel unhappy long term. But it's a difficult thing to be happy. Like it's a difficult thing to have.
Right by the hole.
Like nobody should have too high an expectation for happiness. That's probably a main contributor to unhappiness. Is thinking that you're unhappy when you have a lot of great things around you. It's important to not complain about circumstances in life.
Let's see what happens here on the 7th.
I'm just gonna hit this ball here. Boom. Just gonna hit it right away. Boom. There it goes. Not even paying attention to the wind. Guess this game makes it easy enough for me to do that.
This would be a great up and down. Go ahead and make it.
But yeah, it's only the official narrative. It's only the official narrative that's acceptable. People get morally indignant. And it's just like,
Well, I hope he makes this. It's for par.
I feel like I'm in a position to deny reality a lot because of what I'm saying, that it's mean. Or if I don't see things, if you see things outside of the official narrative, you're just being mean. And I think that things have become really too moralistic and kind of Christian in the nation in the last like year, especially, that there's a lot of pressure that society's putting on each other. Society's policing each other to be moral and be real. And ESPN is working these narratives into their narrative. Just ESPN in football games is propagandizing a lot for the importance of positivity. And this Alabama Mississippi State game I watched, they brought a dog into the booth halfway through the game, just because the formula says that if you put dogs on TV, people like it. They're going to watch it. Dogs are memorable. Dogs are likable. Dogs are great with appearances. They appear on TV all the time. They appear in people's homes and to people way more than any other animal. Like the amount of memories that a dog makes versus the memories even that a raccoon makes are so much more collectively. There's so many more things that people see a dog do because dogs are memorable. They're always doing things that are likable. ESPN during this broadcast brought a dog into the booth just because they have all they care about is the positivity formula, or only showing you things that are about appearances and winning and obviosity and things that are evident, things that people know, which is what they're calling real and that what the world is calling real. But it's this adherence to what is real that's so dangerous, because you're just saying that anybody who's illuminating something more complex, or like going further than what's already obvious and what's real, is they're not to be listened to. And currently it's somebody that's going to owe $200 million in the court of law, but is somebody who isn't being real. And
It's like they just forgot
I heard it a couple times during ESPN's bullshit ass agenda driven broadcasts, the importance of being real. I heard one of the broadcasters say this, and it's not their own words. This is shit that their producers are telling them to say. It's some clownish
Not much happening. Moving
bullshit.
down the
Who knows where it's coming from? It's coming from the
top.
top. All of these broadcasters are all pawns, especially the ESPN ones, but basically all of them. There's been this mass unification between the broadcasters and the referees. You can call bullshit on that. People aren't going to believe me when I say this, but you should you should at least see a little bit how the broadcasters are doing everything to defend the referees, especially for teams that they like. The broadcasters might go against the referees if it's like a team that they already don't support or whatever, but then you're not allowed to ask any questions. But there's just been a co-opting of the official narrative of football games, even. There's been a co-opting of that by referees and broadcasters. They finally realized that they were on the same team, and they have, over the last 5 years, done a lot towards the direction of unifying themselves, making themselves on the same team. And it's the biggest threat to football that there is. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. I don't know how much.
Well, that was a good strike.
I don't really know much about the agendas of referees, what they actually are. I just don't like that you're not allowed to question anything as the viewer. Everything. There's been this big push by the broadcasters to consolidate power. I mean, to grab all of the power in the situation, make sure the broadcasters are making sure to tell you, the viewer, that you are wrong anytime you're questioning the referee's decision, when it's like, when have the referees ever been right, really? It's not like they're right and then we go from there to figure out if they're wrong. It's never been like we had to do it that way. And it's really probably like half of the people watching have the perspective that we treat them like they are guilty until proven innocent. It's never been like the referees are so amazing at their job that we have to do it, that they're innocent until proven guilty. But in this case, it's just innocent until proven innocent again. It doesn't even matter if they made a mistake. They're still completely right, according to the broadcasters and the official narrative, that it's just really just kind of makes it shitty to watch when it's just this big moral lesson that you're learning. That's what Disney wants to make it into, the same as their movies. They're trying to make it that you, the viewer, are learning a lesson about morality the whole time. Like, these are the rules, and the referees handed them down, and it's important to follow the rules and stay within the rules because that's good and that's real. And I swear to Christ, I heard one of the broadcasters yesterday say, if you feel what you feel is often different from what's real. Like, that has place in a football game. I would call this a leftist narrative, or a narrative for collectivism and socialism. Don't always question your own individuality. Never trust yourself. But these are just the bullshit lines that they're working into a football game for no visible reason. It doesn't apply to football at all. They're just working in all this bullshit about us learning lessons, us the stupid people receiving the information from the broadcasters. But it's like, I'm not getting mad at this because it's a football game. This is the way that the nation is always trying to make it. They keep regurgitating the same crap from the fucking Muppets and whatever. Like, I really just kind of feel like leaving the nation. I'm not very close to doing something like that, because probably the furthest I'll move away is to Texas or something. I don't know that there's another nation I'd want to move to. So unfortunately, I'm stuck here. But it's just the same crap about remembering the 80s over and over and over again. Because that's as far as the echo chamber of cable TV is able to have authority over. Once it hits the 90s, they don't have an authority over caricaturizing the 90s. They only go so far as the 80s because that's their fan base, that's their viewership, is people who would find their identity in the 80s. It stops there, and really it's kind of like there isn't even any finding your identity in the 90s, because the 90s is a more identityless decade. It's more difficult to define, but hopefully my generation can make it so that we stop doing this bullshit where we make our identity a decade, because It just creates a lot of division and competition unnecessarily to say that a decade that you lived through is better than somebody else's decade. It's bullshit to identify yourself to a decade just because you lived through it. It doesn't make that decade better. But it's all that. But it's just that I'm hearing that same message over and over again during a 3-hour football game. These like leftist messages of socialism and be as stupid as possible and always listen to your elders and the fucking broadcasters who are telling you what, because the rules are always right. They are not to be questioned. But it's just kind of weird that this is it's so moral, but they ignore that this is a ploy for morality. They act like this is just, it's always just like this is all what we're all supposed to support. But that is the world for people that don't want to go outside of what's known and what are already the rules. Is the world where we all stupidly just get angry at people we don't understand. Call them mean. When people say, it's funny when people say, I think that what you need is a hug. It kind of died. People were saying that a lot for like a 2-month period to people like me who are just cynical about everything, that appear disagreeable and ugly. The response that warranted from some people, maybe like 6 months ago, was, I think that what you just need is a hug. It's funny when people say that because 9 times out of 10 they just say it to be mean. They just say it as an insult. In my experience, I mean, yeah, they might follow it up with a hug, sure. Most of the time they just say it to be mean, to insult you. Like, aha, look at this, got a loser here who didn't get out enough hugs during life. Well, we got a loser who needs a hug. Like, people don't say it meaning that they're about to give you a hug. That's like the last thing on their mind. They're just saying it to say that you're not as good as them because they receive... I don't know. People just do it to be condescending. But it's just a major attack on free speech to go after the guy who his whole persona, his whole livelihood is like free speech. Now the court system, but it's the court of law. And I just have to ask, what generates the court of law being so important? Why do people trust that more than anything else? Why does it always come down to right versus wrong? What is the moral code that we all seem to have? Where does it come from? Because it doesn't, I don't see it anywhere besides if it's like the Bible, the book that was the only book that humans had for a really long period of time, and the most important book humans have ever produced, that prefaces itself, bases itself with the story of Adam and Eve and humans plunging themselves into a world of knowing the difference between good versus evil, right versus wrong. The Bible begins itself with this story, a metaphor about humans all of a sudden being in a world where everything is dictated by right versus wrong, and it's irreversible. They can't go back. I feel like that's got to be the reason why it's like, oh yeah, the courtroom handed down $965 million and he is going to have to pay it, when in reality that's ridiculous. But it's like it always comes back to the courtroom or what the laws are. Like, you have to listen to the law. People are so afraid, Christians especially, are so afraid of doing things that are illegal. As if like legality. I'm just saying that if you're somebody who really thinks legality has the final say, and that it's really bad to do anything illegal, like if you're somebody who's afraid of the law, that's just, those are just Christian qualities. That's just Christianity. Christianity will follow the rules. If you're like, if you're a big supporter of Christianity, you're just a rule follower. You're somebody who likes following the rules and staying within what is known. And that's just like the law is the law, and the official narrative as handed down is the law, because that's what's real is only what's dictated by the law, dictated to us by what happens in a courtroom. And I'm just making the point that the courtroom completely is reserved for the world of the known, and it's just characteristically in opposition to people who make their own way, or entrepreneurs, or but it's just that, like, I mean, just individual thinking. Anybody who is successful at saying their own things, individualism. But it's like the left is always going after individualism. They don't care about it. They don't care about small business. They are perfectly willing to run small business out of town, give more control to the government. But I'm talking about integrity as it is found in an individual. There's this false idea that goes around about leadership and integrity, that it's just like being a team player, like an integrity poster with a scene, like a mountain or something that just says integrity. You know, those posters. Like, integrity is for the workplace, being part of a team, being a team player. That's what you're supposed to answer about integrity, is that it's kind of like you need to submit to collectivism and socialism. That's what makes you somebody who has integrity, is if you're a team player. When in reality, a person who has integrity is somebody who's like an entrepreneur, somebody who's able to create their own moral system, is somebody who has more individuality, somebody who has more morality in and of themselves, like just within themselves. It's somebody who has a lot of morality and integrity just by themselves. That's somebody who's able to create a whole new world. Like Alex Jones is somebody who has an enormous amount of integrity relative to the next person. Alex Jones is somebody with integrity because he creates this alternate universe where all of these things happen, and it is a reality, the thing that he created, even though it's not reality to most people. It's not reality to most people because they are nowhere near being able to theorize at the level he's theorizing. But you know that it is at least partially true because he makes millions of dollars off of this world that he created. There are plenty of people who are entrepreneurs that think they have the ability to create a new moral system. But what I'm saying is, like, you create an enterprise, you've created an alternate reality, and you're only able to do that if you have integrity. Like, you can only infuse a creation with morality if you have a lot of that already on your own, and it only actually has morality if it lasts for a long time. That's how you know an individual has morality and integrity, is if they're able to create a reality that has borders, that has its own moral system. And that's what Alex Jones creates. He creates this thing that it's his own morality, sure, but he's somebody with integrity, somebody who, you have less integrity the more you're dependent on everybody else around you. If you're really dependent on the system that you're within, if you're dependent on it, then you don't have very much integrity. You're relying on other people's integrity. What gives you integrity is being an individual. That's how you determine if somebody has that quality or not. But it's just like,
This next putt is for bogey.
I don't think that these parents are actually actors or whatever. I'm just kind of being ironic, because at this point you would have to ask, like, they cared this little about their kids that they're willing to make a big joke out of it for the entire nation. You're going to ask for $2.5 trillion? You guys are fucking clowns, and you don't care. You don't care about making a mockery of this entire situation. Why are you so concerned with prolonging the tragedy 10 years after the fact, dabbing your dabbing your nose in the courtroom because you're so sad, you're crying. How do you end up in you're in front of Alex Jones, your response is to cry because it's so sad. That's the most ridiculous reaction because Alex Jones is a ridiculous person. He's it's funny like what he's saying because he's in the courtroom and he's still like acting like it's his show. He's still going on with the things he always says. He's still being himself and saying outlandish things. It's just that it's a complete shit show. It's bullshit to act like Alex Jones wouldn't say those things. Like, think about this seriously for a minute. Anybody, either the jury or the families. These families really think that Alex Jones wasn't about to say those things. Like, oh yeah, he was about to stop himself, but he made a poor choice. He knew what he was doing. He made a bad decision on purpose. Like, he was about to not say that about them. Like, it's fucking Alex Jones. What do you think he was going to do? As if Alex Jones hasn't been making himself out to be this person that says conspiratorial things and says things that are ugly to lots of people. As if Alex Jones hasn't been contributing towards this persona for like 40 years in a row. Like, hey, did you guys know that this is Alex Jones and he says these kinds of things? It's a complete ignorance of art and what it takes to create something like that. Complete slap in the face to entertainment. Because Alex Jones is just, it's artistic what he says and what he does. It's not like all of it is true or all of it is real, the same way that art is. He's just saying, a lot of it is just he is painting a picture for people, using things that are partially true. And at the end of the day, it's entertaining and he's the best in the business at it. And to say that he is completely wrong and completely evil the entire time for doing that, just like why should anybody make any art or do anything anymore? If everything has to be in complete adherence with the law and the rules, there's no art anymore. Forget about anybody making anything, because all art is shit people are making in order to exploit some territory in the unknown or point people towards some truth that they're not thinking about. Like, why? Let's not have a world where we cross over into the unknown. Let's just say stay in complete safety forever. Only live in accordance with the rules forever. Nobody should say anything that was not expected. Everything has to be obvious and known already. Don't say anything where we don't know your intention up front. There's no fakeness anymore. Nothing's artistic. That's what the left is saying is the world that we need to live in. Besides, the left is complete bullshit. Like, I see no reason to ever vote for them ever again, because the left is the party that acts like they're so fucking peaceful when they're the party that's trying to start nuclear war with Russia. Trump wasn't antagonizing Russia. Trump wasn't sending millions of dollars worth of weapons into Ukraine because he had some desire to overtake Ukraine and have a position against Russia. Like, the left is very obviously the party that's completely fucking paranoid, delusional, out of their minds, thinking that Russia's about to attack us. They're doing it to the point that they're trying to take over the territory that's most lucrative between USA and Russia. But it's the same left that wants the mainstream media to have all the power, and the echo chamber of cable TV to have all the power, and have like CNN have all the power. The same way that it used to be. It's the left that wants the nation to identify itself to a time when it's Russia versus America. It's the left that wants to convince the nation that we're still living in that time, still living in the 80s and the 70s, or whatever it is. The same way that the 80s presents itself over and over again on CBS and NBC in what they consider to be really funny and hilarious ways. Like, oh, Jimmy Fallon is going back to the 80s or whatever bullshit fucking thing it is. That's just propaganda for you to think that we're still living in the 80s and 90s, the same as the time when Russia was about to attack America. It's the left that wants to do that. It's the left that somehow is able to blame Trump being elected on Russia because it's the left that's fucking paranoid about Russia, completely delusional. They've been trying to position themselves in Ukraine. The left specifically has for over a decade. So I don't know why anybody would vote for the party that wants nuclear war to come about, that wants to antagonize Russia. When it's like, they criticize Trump for being deranged, but when Trump gets into office, he's like, hey, I know we had that whole lock her up thing going on, but obviously I'm not going to pursue putting Hillary Clinton in jail because I'm not deranged. But the left is like actually deranged, and there's a bunch of babies still pissed that Trump won the election, and they're trying to take measures to put him in jail actually because they're childish and deranged. They think that that's the way of handling it, is if they lost a game, let's do what we can to put the other guy in jail. Like, they think that that's something you can actually do. But it's like, that's just how it works, is that they criticize Trump for being the deranged one, but then they elect a guy who's actually deranged, who's actually going to cause us to go into nuclear war. It's the left that cares about doing that. The right takes measures to prevent that from happening. I mean, the left is just completely in the business of circulating bullshit narratives. They call themselves progressives. What they do is the furthest thing from being progressive. It's really like, I mean, the progressives, the liberals are the conservative ones, and the conservatives are progressive. And I don't know how you say that that's anything other than fact when the conservatives are electing Trump, the guy who's rogue, the guy who exists in the unknown realm, the evil guy, because they're willing to progress past the borders of what we're already doing. They're willing to break the rules. Like, they elect a guy who isn't even a politician and the guy that everybody hates. It's a complete departure from the state of things as we're supposed to understand them. So you elect Trump, but they're the conservatives. Like, and the liberals are progressive when they're the ones that elect Biden, a career politician, a guy who's already been in the White House. That's the most conservative move you can make. Why are they the progressives? And why are the conservatives conservative? Conservatives are the ones willing to do something wild. And that's my vote, is for something adventurous, something outside of the norm. And because, I mean, whatever, I'm not gonna lobby you for my vote. I'm not gonna propagandize conservatism too much more. Obviously what I do is propaganda too, but fuck the left, fuck ESPN. I hate their bullshit. A lesson learned is a lesson gained, whatever it is. They're just so concerned with imposing morality on you, the viewer, that it's so grating and offensive. To think that we're just going to sit back and listen when they're trying to turn a football broadcast into like a lesson you learn about what reality is, and make sure you do your part to shit on anybody who isn't doing something that's obvious to you. If somebody's doing something you don't understand, that's the person we need to continue to write out of reality or whatever. It's easier to do that because they're already out of it, but I think that is the dynamic, that conservatives represent the unknown, and that's really scary to people. That's like a Jordan Peterson is more conservative, or Joe Rogan is that, because it's scary to people when you have a guy talking about unknown things and they have all these followers or whatever. But
Hope it gets a good kick to the left. Not a bad approach. Grab the putter from the caddy. You're dancing.
There you go. That's your sermon for today. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it, the listenership, and I think I've made like $5 or $6 or whatever. I mentioned how much money I made in the past. I've only made a short amount of money because for a long time I didn't I wasn't taking steps to monetize it, so that was my own negligence. So, like, I would have made more than $5 or $6. I'm up to $6. I would have made more than that by now if I had monetized from the beginning, but I was just being negligent and hadn't processed my stunted relationship to ambition that I am now realizing I have. But um, thanks for listening.
Well, it's come down to this.
Talk to you all later.
Welcome to the 18.